Okay, welcome everybody. It's oops, I gotta hit okay here. Okay, there we go. Welcome everybody to the October 12th NCAC General Membership Meeting. Beautiful morning today, everywhere, I think. So we'll call the meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. and get rolling here. Quite a few things to cover today. The conflict of interest question for officers is number one on the agenda. I have no conflicts today, and the other officers, I think, actually, I should say that Chris Sokowski is absent today. He's in. He notified me earlier this week that he's actually in Manila today, and so he's away. So I'll be doing the treasurer's report, and we've got a little work to do there today as a membership group. So I have no conflicts today. So
Michael Beachley, I have no conflicts.
yeah.
Gary Billingsley, I have no conflicts for this meeting.
Alex Clark, I have no conflicts.
And okay, I don't see Nancy yet, but I would anticipate her adding here any minute. She rarely misses meetings. So second item is the August 10th meeting minutes and approval. Are there any corrections that need to be made to the minutes? So hearing none, we'll just approve the minutes from the August 10th, 2024 general membership meeting. Okay. Let's see, Gary, notices from Tillamook County.
Yes, we do have one notice. They received a building application permit within the Nusquin coastal hazard area. And that's been the website, or the link to the county's website's been posted on the NCAC website. And let me see if I can post it here in the chat. And it's, from what I could read, it was to permit to rebuild one of the breakers condos that burned down last year, I think in the November timeframe.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Gary. Let's see, item 4, report of the executive board chair's report. We met on, the executive board met on September 18th. And I've got a number of notes here. I'm going to shuffle back and forth with things that I need to share today. So bear with me if I'm shuffling papers here for a minute. But so the agenda for the executive board meeting September 18th, it was on the website and can be accessed still, and the video can as well. We really just talked a couple of things. We talked about the preparing for the September 25th STR meeting with the county, hosted by us, but Sarah Absher really was leading that meeting. That's what we talked about on September 18th. And then we also talked about the upcoming October 16th meeting that we will host again here on the NCAC website, or at NCAC site. And that is a meeting surrounding with it. Sarah's going to run again, and it has to do with new FEMA regulations. That's going to be this coming Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. And that's going to be a pretty important meeting, I think, for folks to attend. The FEMA regulations are moving quickly and can be impactful to all regions in Tillamook County. So I would recommend folks chat with neighbors about that and try and attend that meeting again, 6:30 on Wednesday, the 16th, on the NCAC site here. We're going to host that. We had a couple of check-ins at the executive board meeting, Bylaws and Community Plan Steering Committee. just some updates on progress there. More about the community plan steering committee today, later in this meeting. Bylaws is working primarily on policies and procedure stuff. And then we talked a little bit about NCAC and NCA partnership opportunities. This Rand had brought this up. He's a part of both associations, and I think what we talked about was the possibility for for being partners in a grant, the NCAC and the NCA, to acquire some technology that would allow for hybrid meetings. Right now, Sarah brings some technology to the locale to host hybrid meetings. And if we were able to purchase our own technology, then we could do our own hybrid meetings and not count on the county to bring their stuff. So that's what we talked about at the executive committee meeting. But it got us into a larger conversation about sort of partners, who the NCAC partners with, and how that decision's made. And I think after our conversation, where we sort of landed was that Bylaws was going to take a little bit of a look at this. And I would say, just from my perspective, this was one that I was made aware of through Rand, but I was also contacted by the county, not by the county, by a group of folks who had county representation and also representation from the hospital in Tillamook. And they contacted me in mid-September, maybe early September, to see if they could attend our meeting and present on ballot measure. Let me see, I've got it here, ballot measure. Oh, I don't, where's the number? Oh, here it is, okay. Ballot measure 29180, which is a general obligation ballot measure for, I think, about $24 million, and it would go towards updating the emergency communications network in supplies in Tillamook County. We talked about that request at the executive committee. I told the group when they emailed me that we would talk about it in our executive committee, and I would respond to them at that point. We talked about it as an executive committee, and we just respectfully declined that request. And it had nothing to do with a position on the ballot measure, but it had more to do with, as we talked about it, we felt like there would need to be equal representation for both sides. They were for it, and we just felt like there would need to be both sides represented at the meeting. And then we talked a little bit about what the mission of the NCAC is about, and it's really, when I looked at it, it's about making recommendations to the county on land use issues and things like that. And so we did respectfully decline that request. And I did email that group and let them know after that meeting. But it kind of brings up this issue again about how we decide how this time is used as a group. And I think the bylaws is going to take a real close look at partnerships and things like that come before the NCAC, and whether that's something that we want to bring to the membership or not. That was really the focus of our conversation at the executive board committee when we met in September. So I think that covers the executive board chair's report. Any questions? Rand, go ahead. You're mute.
The other element was the midnight pavers, and they're
Okay, right.
using the mailing list to reach a broader group of individuals about a public safety issue, and so putting out a request for support
Yeah.
for helping pay the challenge grant by the NCA of $25,000. So then it was a question of, as you point out,
Yeah,
well, who can do that?
right, right.
Who can ask for the use of the mailing list? So that, just to include the questions that were raised, that was one of them.
Yeah. Thanks, Rand, for pointing that out. I had missed that in my notes. Just recalling when I was writing yesterday, I had missed that part. So thanks for reminding me of that.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that I think that just generally speaking, as for the sort of the officers of the NCAC and now I would say expanding to the executive committee, I think that what I could see is that we will get requests for things of the NCAC, and having some sort of a blueprint for how we make those decisions would be helpful. And I think that the bylaws are going to hopefully mull that over. I know Nancy said that this has come up in another organization that she's involved with, and she was going to look at how they have put forward a blueprint for fielding those requests and those questions. So, so I think that's it for the executive board chair's report. Any other questions about that? Okay. All right. The treasurer's report. Chris is gone, and he's forwarded to me some information here. I'll just read. So let's see. We have a beginning balance of $726, which was the ending balance at our July meeting. We had a $160 debit card charge from Zoom for annual subscription, which is included in the approved 2025 budget. That brings the ending balance. I'm sorry, that was the beginning balance. The ending balance is now $566. And then we have a request for reimbursement. It's from, the request came from Jeff Linman, who is involved with the NCA. And it was for a charge of $46.34. And the request from Jeff came, apparently Jeff is involved in the obtaining and renewing the Nesco CAC domain name. And so this charge comes up every 2 years. And the domain, it says the domain name was initially transferred from the NCA to the NCAC in 2022 for a 2-year term. And it looks like we paid the $42.34 in 2022, and now it's come up again for payment. So this request came from Jeff, and just looking, when the request came, I looked, and according to our bylaws, we have to have a vote on this as a membership, because I guess it's an expenditure, and it wasn't in our budget. So I think what we need to do this morning is we need to have a poll. I think Gary's got a poll, and it's just a yes or no poll, I believe. Maybe Gary, and we'll just take a vote, and then we can, hopefully the vote will be yes, and we'll just reimburse Jeff, and everything will be done. So Gary, do you have?
Yeah, let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Does everybody see the poll?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Greg. Gary. So if folks can vote now, we'll get that done.
We have 17 of 19 participants have voted. Then I guess I'm one of those, so I'll vote yes also. And I don't see any more coming in, so I'll end the poll now.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Gary, and thanks, everybody. Okay, treasurer's report. Next item is seeking numbers or members for communications and outreach task forces. We've had some great interest in folks stepping forward to be a part of organizations lately. The communications task force is doing a wonderful job. Candace has stepped in and helping with the calendar, which is very helpful for us, and that's just been great. And the other one is an outreach task force. Susan Schomburg's I think the lone member on the outreach task force at this time, but looking for more members to be involved in that task force. I will just make so hopefully if you are interested or you have others, maybe neighbors or folks in the community you think might be interested, please, they can just send a notice to the NCAC admin. They could send a notice to Susan Schomburg, and we could eventually field that. So we're open for more members in both of those categories. I will add that Susan spoke to me after, I think, our executive committee meeting, and Susan's been in contact. I know that the issue with the bears, the local bears and trash cans and trash has been quite something through the late summer and fall in Nesco, and Susan has really reached out to ODFW and they've provided some really good information, at least to her, and she emailed it to me. And I guess with a membership's permission, I'd like to put that on the NCAC website as information for how to minimize the effect of the bears in the community on trash and what to do and what not to do. It's a great little, just a one-page informational thing on bears and trash in the community. So I'd like to put that on the NCAC website for everybody to access. Is that something that folks in today would like to be okay with?
Sure.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's really good. I saw it. It's just pretty straightforward stuff, but it's just really a good reminder. So we'll do that. We'll get that and try and get that up on the NCAC website here right away. Thanks, Susan, for doing that as well. Go ahead.
I was curious about a definition for what the outreach community does. Is it outreach to other organizations about policy, or is it outreach to community members about participation? I'm a little bit foggy about what exactly the role is and the kind of authority.
Mm-hmm. Good question. I think it has more to do with trying to get folks engaged with the NCAC. But Susan, do you have a Susan Schomburg?
Yeah, I can. It's one of the things is to grow the membership and to get word out to people who may not be aware of the existence of the NCAC organization. And I see that as the big thing to do for the outreach.
And is it like one-on-one, or are you sending out things to different mailing lists, or like,
To be
how is
honest,
the communication?
I've just stepped into the role, and I'm seeing it more as trying to. Well, of course, I have to go before the executive board, but just off the cuff, what I'm envisioning is seeing if we can recruit people from each of the neighborhoods that have been identified in the community plan, as well as Slab Creek Road, and get people within each of the neighborhoods to reach out to their neighborhoods to grow the membership. Because I think people living in the neighborhoods have more of a sense of who's there and just get greater visibility for the organization. That's one of the things that I see.
And
So
Nancy.
basically,
Oh,
thinking
I'm sorry,
one-
go ahead.
I think the other thing is that the outreach task force is something that when we redid the bylaws last year is also took the responsibilities of the nominating committee,
Oh,
the
right.
nominations committee,
Yeah.
to find people for officer positions and task forces, but not vetting. So it's more like going out and trying to let people know that these positions are open and try to encourage people to apply. So it's kind of a combination of that. And then as Susan said, try to grow the membership, let people know that we exist as a body and when we're meeting and that kind of thing. So I think it'd be great to see people join Susan on that committee. She'll do a
Yeah.
great job too.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Any other questions or comments about that? Did that help, Lori?
yeah, I guess,
Okay.
it'll be interesting to see what comes before the executive community and how it evolves. I would just hope that it's kind of a unified message that's going out, and that the tenor of it is in keeping with, what the executive committee and the general meeting has in mind. So
Mhm.
just, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. And I'm
Okay.
hopeful.
Yeah.
I love the idea of going to the neighborhoods and figuring out who's in the neighborhoods and who they can spread the message. That's wonderful.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. And welcome, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was a few minutes late.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay, the next item is a special meeting for the STR Cap that we held on September 25th. And this is just information from that meeting. I'll speak and then I'll open it up to folks who, if they have a different take on it or want to add something to it. But that meeting was held by us, but Sarah Absher ran, really, it was her meeting. And the county was asking the community the question about the STR cap. And then basically it was, do you want to increase the cap? Do you want to decrease the cap? Do you want to take no action on the cap? Oh, Michael's put something up here. Does Nancy have any conflicts of interest? So let's maybe. No? Is it?
Sorry, no.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Michael. So that was a cap question for Nesco, and a larger view of this is that Sarah's traveling around to the unincorporated communities and asking this question of all of the communities about their STR cap. Apparently the Board of County Commissioners is wanting all of the communities to weigh in now, and then they're going to make a decision based on that information fairly soon. So Sarah held the meeting. It was well attended. I think I was looking back at the transcript of the meeting yesterday morning, and I think we probably had probably 50 people, maybe over 50 people at the meeting. Some left because it went on a little bit longer than we had anticipated. It was a good discussion. Sarah answered questions from the community about different things related to STRs and the cap and increasing it or decreasing it. And the issue of the condos came up. Do we take the condos out of the total number of STRs? And think I didn't get that in my notes. Maybe somebody can speak to how they come. I guess I do have it here somewhere. The condos were, what did I write here? No, I misplaced it, but the condos were, I can't remember the number that they had on the condos, 78 condos or something out of the, okay, 78, 191 STRs in Nescowan, 78 of them were condos. Some of the, we talked about some of the issues that Nescowan's seen. Let's see. Well, just different things. Parking came up as a big issues related to the STRs, I know. And I guess, yeah. So it came down to a poll, and it was a straw poll about what to do for Nescowan. And the question was, really the question we asked was, do we do nothing or do we do something? That was the first question in the poll. Do we choose to take no action now, or do we take some action? That was the first question. And based on that, we would decide whether to have a poll to increase or decrease them. And that poll question, which is a 2-question poll, 2 options, I went back to the transcript and counted as best I could from 138 in the transcript, which is when the poll was put up. I think some folks left right before that. They had to leave, but I counted the number of folks who said wait and see. And that number came out to be 47. There were 47 folks who said wait and see. And there were 2 that said act now. And so based on that, Sarah is going to recommend that Nescowan has chosen to wait and see. And I believe she said that we would revisit the cap. Maybe somebody who else was at the meeting can correct me. I thought she said in 25, we would revisit the cap. Is that what folks heard? And feel free to raise your hand or speak now if you want to add something that I've missed or correct something that I've said.
Yeah, I think she said
Okay.
a year from the meeting, so maybe next fall in 2025. That's what I had that.
Okay. I couldn't remember, Candace. I thought maybe at one point she said 26, but
I think she did say 26, but I think she meant that we would review it in October of 2025.
I think
and
so.
Maybe something would get implemented in 2026. That's kind
Okay.
of yeah.
Okay, that might be right. So that was a good meeting, I felt, and she was wonderful to have there. It's always nice to have her there. She's really the boots on the ground, seeing it, living it, and experiencing all the STR issues for the county's perspective. And so that's what Nescowan will do. We'll wait on the STR cap issue for about a year, and I think it'll come up at that time. So it gives time for all of the ordinance things to take effect for a longer period of time to see sort of, if you would, where the dust is going to settle on those, and maybe make better informed decisions a year from now. So, okay, that let's see, that wraps up that item. And now we come to the Community Plan Steering Committee, the discussion of the proposed vision and values. We've allotted about 30 minutes for this item. And here I'm going to turn it over to the STR chair, that's Randall, and the committee to walk us through what you'd like us to maybe view and discuss today. So, Randall. I think you're mute. There you go. Yeah.
Hi, thank you, Mark. I'm Randall Cook, the chair of the Nescon Community Plan Steering Subcommittee. And my fellow officers on this are Lori Kovac, Lynn Saxton, Tom Seep, and Guy Sievert. And we have had posted, since this meeting was posted, the vision and values on the website. And our hope was that people would read that document and come to this meeting prepared for that. It seems like it might make sense to actually put it on the screen and go through the community plan, and maybe if people have questions, they can post it in the chat. That way we have a thorough reading of the current document by everyone attending the meeting, and then that's, I think, when questions would come up. If there are any questions at right now about the vision and values statement, let's find out if anyone's read it and come up with questions. And if not, then we'll proceed to go through it. What do you think about that? People open to that? And I don't so far see anything in the chat about this.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so Gary, is it possible to get that document on the screen?
Do you have it up? You can share from your,
Oh, okay.
you just say share, will ask me to let you share.
Okay, let's see. I've got it right here. So let's see, I'm trying to think if I stay on the meeting. If I do a full screen, I'm afraid I'm going to lose the meeting somewhere in the layers, but maybe it's okay. Well, maybe we can just do it like this. You can see enough of that, I think. So, Nesquin vision and values identify. Oh,
Are
what?
are you sharing?
Oh, I need to share at the bottom
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
See, now I'm not on the now I'm not on the Zoom call. Here we go. Not sure where the share screen is. There it is. It's lit up. Okay, so this is the one we want to share. Okay, did that work?
I need to
Yep,
send
I
it.
see it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm probably gonna read the one I can see on. Okay, so if you can see it, then I'll go through it here. Nesquin vision and values identified. An updated set of Nesquin community values was created through a series of feedback sessions held by the Nesquin Community Plan Steering Subcommittee in the summer of 2024. The subcommittee took the 2001 values statement and solicited Nesquin community members for their inputs. There were no previously stated values that were rejected or changed significantly by the process. Instead, several points were amplified and new values added. As a result of the process, the subcommittee was able to group the values into four main categories: community character, family-focused and education-minded, environmental stewardship, and safety and resilience. Although the categories are separated in this section of the Nesquin Community Plan, it was stressed by the participants and acknowledged by the subcommittee that all of the values are interrelated. And here we actually put a map of the neighborhoods. Now, Tom wasn't familiar with the neighborhoods, so I described the neighborhoods, and it's been pointed out that Valhalla up there may be a coined term for that neighborhood and may not be any official name, but we'll go with Valhalla until we get pushback on it, I guess. So Community character values. There is both variety and continuity in the various neighborhoods that make up the Nescoin community. The variety stems from the unique aspects of the setting of our neighborhoods. Figure 1 shows the informal designations for those neighborhoods. There is a desire for guidelines that preserve the unique characters of the distinct neighborhoods. As different as the neighborhoods are, there's a general agreement that community members enjoy Nescoin's relaxed beachside atmosphere. This feeling was expressed as a spirit of inclusiveness where everyone feels welcome and respected. This spirit promotes a friendly atmosphere where neighbors and visitors support each other. Part of what supports the relaxed atmosphere is the limited commercial activity that we have in place. Supermarkets and gas stations create increased traffic and thereby increased tensions. Keeping commercial activity at a minimum helps preserve the character of our community. Preserving the character of Nescoin does require some enhancement to our values. There is a general agreement that Nescoin needs a diverse housing supply that accommodates a variety of household needs and life stages of its residents and visitors. These changes are aimed at maintaining a vibrant community that evolves with the people who live, work, and visit Nescoin. A big part of the community character of Nescoin is expressed by effective grassroots volunteer community organizations and their activities. These include the Nescoin Community Association, the golf course, the farmers market, school activities, 4th of July activities, Midnight Pavers, which are volunteer road repairers, arts, and Nescoin chamber music.
Hey,
Yes.
and before you go any further, we have a question from Barbara Triplett. She wants to know why Slab Creek Road wasn't recognized as a neighborhood on the map.
Well, part of it has to do with the map that was chosen. There's only about 400 feet of Slab Creek Road on the map. And the other thing was that the area where the land use things pertain to are basically those neighborhoods that are represented. And Slab Creek Road is not in that area where the land use things are intended to influence. So if Tom can speak to that, we could have a different map and rework that. Tom actually asked me why Slab Creek wasn't included also, but it was basically because it wasn't really on the map. So go ahead, Tom, if you have other comments.
Yeah, it's being incorporated in the next draft, so it will be there. And the most current version of the visions and values is in our draft rather than this document, but it's only minor wordsmithing between the two. So it's essentially the same.
Okay, so it will be addressed. And thank you, Barbara, for that observation, and Tom's on it.
Before you move on, Rand,
Yes.
could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I realize we may not be considered a grassroots organization, but I wonder if the NCAC could be included in that list of community organizations.
I think that's appropriate, yes. Okay, include NCAC, which created the document. All right, we'll do that. Family-focused and educated-minded values. The people of Nescoin value their community's attitude of being a place where individuals and families of all kinds live the life they want to live. It is important that children feel safe and supported. Many current residents grew up or visited here as children. We all want the security they felt then to be continued into the future. Artists, artisans, and the arts have been and continue to be a vital part of Nescoin's unique identity. To maintain that environment requires that quality educational opportunities that enrich the lives of community members of all ages are available. Supporting a community of learners committed to continuous improvement benefits Nescoin in both the short and long term. The support for a learning community has as its core a group of shared goals, motivations, and values, a place to share ideas, problems, and questions, a collaborative environment, a network of fellow residents and experts. Environmental stewardship values. Living in rural Oregon, Nescoin is particularly sensitive to the ecosystem that we visit, work, and live in. As such, it is critical that Nescoin maintain sustainable practices that minimize our impact on Nescoin's natural environment. This environment includes beaches, creeks, forests, as well as other habitats. In order to continue to enjoy Nescoin, it is vital that we maintain practices that sustain our environment as well as adapt to it as it changes. Preparing Nescoin for the impacts of climate change is an immediate and ongoing challenge. The Pacific Ocean will continue to test the land and structures in our low-lying areas. In addition, climate and habitat changes will likely negatively impact native plant and animal species. Nescoin needs to continue planning and enacting adaptation measures such as the Coastal Hazards Overlay Zone, including replanting tree and riparian species that will survive anticipated climate changes and housing codes that will protect residents from excessive heat and increased storm frequency and intensity. There is a strong desire to minimize hazardous wildlife encounters, which applies to both human safety and the preservation of indigenous wildlife. Education about and enforcement of practices that minimize harmful interactions is important. Keeping trash away from bears and other wildlife is especially critical. As a general rule, Nescoin community members wish to minimize disturbances to wildlife. Being away from large cities, Nescoin has historically been a place where night skies can be appreciated. We need to protect our night skies by adopting guidelines for security lighting that does not compromise the natural dark skies. Although the Nescoin community strongly resists the incorporation of any fossil fuel stations, we do advocate electric vehicle charging stations in residences as a way to help preserve the clear air quality. As a practical matter, Nescoin must continue to maintain appropriate visitor information. We cannot assume that visitors will understand the complex nature of our environment. It is necessary to help visitors understand so that we all may continue to enjoy the nature around us. Safety and resilience values. Safety is about taking steps necessary to prevent accidents from happening. Resilience is Nescoin's capacity to recover and thrive when accidents or acts of nature occur. Both are vital to the Nescoin community. Safety. One of the valued aspects of living in the various Nescoin neighborhoods is the ability to walk the streets and paths to connect with others rather than drive a car. Streets, although vital in connecting to areas outside Nescoin, are the main focus of walking, running, and cycling. The Nescoin community seeks ways to promote the use of non-motor vehicle travel. We value streets where children, pets, and all users can feel safe. The value of streets as ways for people and cars to travel is diminished by the current state of disrepair. It is important to continue to coordinate and cooperate with the county and state agencies for maintenance and improvement of bridges, roads, beach access, and signage. Non-traditional methods of improvements are also valued. The goal is for streets that are safe for multimodal traffic. Paths are also an important way for movement within the Nescoin community. Paths include interconnection of neighborhoods, such as a proposed pedestrian path from South Beach and proposal loop neighborhoods to the village neighborhood. Paths can also provide beach access for those with disabilities. Further support of pedestrians includes crosswalks that range from a simple pedestrian crossing on the east end of the Salem Street Bridge to help folks get from the wayside to the cafe, to engineering a method of allowing people to safely cross 101 to and from the farmers market. Many Nesquin residents are concerned about the danger of unsupervised fireworks. These unbridled displays of celebration have negative effects on the cleanliness of the beaches, as well as disturbing wildlife. Fireworks often present a fire hazard and also often contain harmful chemicals that subsequently fall to the earth or ocean in our community, causing pollution. Resilience. Volunteer safety organizations are the core of resiliency for our community. Firefighters, emergency medical technicians, and community emergency response teams stand ready to help recover from disasters. They are all part of the South Tillamook County Emergency Volunteer Corps, which gives our community vital assistance in times of need. Water is one of the critical keys to the existence of the Nesquin community. A secure and sustainable supply of safe drinking water through management and protection of our watersheds is vital. As part of the water supply system, maintaining a reliable sewer infrastructure that protects the environment is required. Further acquisition of watershed lands is desired. A big part of resilience is proper planning. Emergency plans that prepare us for natural hazards and disasters need to be maintained and expanded. They include tsunami routes, emergency supply sheds and needed materials, tsunami facilities improvement plans, fire protection for homes through education, and proper maintenance of landscapes. So this is the draft in its current form, and there is still work to be done, and a lot of that work will be in response to the ordinance recommendations that are made by the steering committee and based on public input and testimony, as it were, which is the next step in our process. Are there any things that jump out? I don't see, after Barbara's, I don't see any questions in the chat. Who is advocating a pedestrian path from the village to South Beach, Proposal Rock neighborhoods? Have they informed the owners of these private roads of this initiative? I think this is aspirational at this point to point out that that's something that has long been something that the public was looking for, but maybe someone else has an answer to that. And I don't.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Several times that was mentioned during the meetings.
Mhm.
And should probably turn on my video, sorry. It was mentioned several times during meetings that that was desired. Personally, I would love to be able to walk from South Beach down to Hawk Creek Cafe. So yeah, but in terms of, you're right, in terms, this is an aspiration. This is not an initiative. These
Right.
are only things that we would really like to have. Now, if we disagree that we'd really like to have them, that's what's really on the table here. In terms of an initiative, that'll have to be processed and approved on its own, any initiatives.
Right. So there's policies and procedures. There's a number of things that flow out of the value statements, but this is what we received from the public in the meetings. And so we noted all these things and integrated them into this narrative. So we're open to any critique about the statements or anything that seems missing. We're open to finding out about. Okay. So nothing more in the chat. So
Actually, I think there are several things in the chat, Rand.
Oh, there are? Oh, well, it's Lori. Okay. I hope that we can strengthen
Starting
the word.
with B. Allen.
Oh,
after.
right. Nesquin residents are among the worst offenders in driving fast on our streets. Doesn't change the proposed value statement, but it's worth being aware of. Fireworks also terrify pets, not just wildlife, and unfortunately, we're not limited to just 1 or 2 nights a year. I acknowledge both those things, and hopefully so the point of stating the values is that then if someone would like to do something, they can point out that these values are stated, and that supports their argument for, or their pitch for putting in speed bumps or doing some action. This is a document that helps support initiatives or discouraged initiatives if they're antithetical to the values. So appreciate that input. And Lori's, Barbara's, we just addressed that. Lori said, hope we can strengthen the word desire when advocating for acquiring more of Nesquin's watershed. Okay. Susan, the title of the document is Vision and Values. All of the headings in the documents are values. Is there a separate vision document? Well, that's a reasonable question as to how this is constructed. Tom, at one point you had made a distinction between those two and how they're integrated here. So I'm going to let you address that one.
Okay. Yes, I agree that this is primarily visions, or excuse me, values. They are somewhat integrated into it. It's a matter of just an editorial treatment of the inputs. Most of the things we were given were values. Visions for the future. There is actually a section of the community plan which talks about, well, tentatively is titled Going Forward. So those values, those visions will be more on display there, but they'll be supported by the values. So yeah, it is mostly values, but the visions is going to be another part of the community plan. That's just sort of the way it worked out. That was an editorial decision. If you'd like to be the editor, we can arrange that, or participate in the editing. That's certain. If you want to be part of the construction of it, very happy to have you.
Okay. And Barbara notes that the owner of South Beach Road is completely against opening South Beach Road to the public. Please note that my comments do not reflect my personal opinion. So I guess the intent of any crossover is to access the public beach that is south of the creek. And so it wouldn't necessarily, I don't know how that would all take place if none of the roads are public roads and all those that's all private property. Then those people, that's their domain, and they don't have to accept a bridge from the public coming over to their land. So that's all. What?
Excuse me, I don't believe there's any mention of a road. That was in terms of the context of paths,
right?
Which is a lot different than a road.
Yeah, so it could even be a seasonal thing or something like that, but there's no clear, it's just a stated value that the two beaches, it'd be nice if they were connected. In fact, it would probably keep people off the roads in South Beach if there was a connection where people just go from beach to beach. They wouldn't need to go on the road to get to the beach. So anyway, I think that's if that helps clarify that in particular. Am I missing anything, or have I caught up? I think that's all that's in here. So moving forward with this, we will remain open to ideas if they occur to you at a different time. So don't hesitate if you read the statements over again and go, what about this or what about that? But think of it in terms of values, not a particular project or something that is an action. We're talking about values and how those can help us understand and support ideas moving forward into the future. Nancy?
I just want to thank you and your committee. This has come a long way, and I think you guys have done a terrific job. And there may be more massaging as you go through back and forth, I'm guessing, but I really like the map. I mean, it'd be nice when you add in Slab Creek Road, but I love the map. It's very cute and informative. But I think you've done a really nice job of digesting, you know, all the myriad of comments through the various meetings. And thank you.
All right. Well, we owe Tom a lot for that, to turn the long list into an actual narrative that is cohesive. So is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Nancy. Moving forward, our next task is to take on the ordinances and make recommendations to the county about those ordinances. I've contacted Sarah Absher, and she will be attending our October 28th meeting. And she's our team, I don't know, team captain, or she's our connection to the county. So we look forward to having her at our meeting on the 28th, and we'll be proposing some ideas there. I'm going to turn to Guy to help explain the ordinances. You've probably heard it a few times because we've been discussing it for a while. But I'm going to have Guy provide an update and let you know what the actions are. Once we have the ordinances and our recommendations pertaining to those, we'll be sharing those with the public and looking for feedback. And so Guy, can you bring us up to date on that?
Or do you want to stop sharing your screen?
You bet.
It looks like I'm talking to a map right now.
Okay, I have to get back to the other screen to get out of screen sharing.
I think I can stop it. Let me see if it'll work from this side. How's that?
There we are.
There you go. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Rand. And I think there's some good comments about our vision and value statement that we need to work on. Another piece of, and I guess it's part of our vision for and how we go forward for Nescoin, is to take a look at our land use ordinances, and in particular, those dealing with our residential zones. So Nescoin essentially has 3 residential zones. You know, the fortunate for those in Tillamook County that the county had decided years ago to allow unincorporated communities like Nescoin to actually have their own zoning. So if you go to the land use ordinances in the county's website, you'll see all of the unincorporated communities have their own specific land use ordinances and descriptions. That being said, they're pretty much all the same. I mean, there are some slight differences community to community. So to start this process and looking ahead and thinking about, especially for Nescoin's residential zones, which are the R1, R3, and RR zones. And I'm not going to get into it. You can look up the descriptions, but essentially R3 is the more intense housing, allowing for more intense housing. R1, most of the village right now is R1. I think, I'm not sure about South Beach. Barb may know. I think it might be, well, I'm not sure what some of the lots are there. But anyways, essentially those are the 3 residential zones that make up within our community boundary. When you look at those zones, the key piece of it is how can those tax lots, properties be used? And it will surprise you if you go to the county's website and look at, for instance, Nescoin's R1 zone, which is the predominant zone, for instance, in the village, except I think along Breakers, there's some R3. The number one use is farm and forest use. And the descriptions of those are certainly of forest use is non-existent for the county, although the state has descriptions. And the farm use is allowed in the residential areas in Nescoin as an outright use. There's no conditions to it or whatever. It's just an outright use. So when we first looked at these, and there's other examples too besides farm and forest, we wanted to recommend that we streamline these uses and focus on housing in our residential zones. And we prepared an initial draft of what we thought it would look like. We forwarded that to the county. We were told that it was forwarded to the county council and has been on hold for what, 6 months, I think, something like that, Rand. But essentially the feedback we've gotten and our committee has gotten back is that any change in a use of a property, any limitation of a use could result in a Measure 56 takings claim. And just roughly a Measure 56 claim is that if I've got a lot down on McMinnville Street and you take away a farm use from it, and I decided, well, wait a minute, I wanted to have a farm. I wanted to grow chickens there and have an egg business. And so you're taking away that use. I can file a Measure 56 claim that you're taking that use away from me. So the county does not want, they've been involved in a couple of Measure 56 claims recently, and they don't want to do that again. We like to say that they are risk averse at this point. So they have essentially told our committee any real changes in the uses of properties as listed, currently listed, is going to be difficult at best, non-existent at worst for us. So we're trying to work within that framework. What is it that we can really do to, and our committee's talked about really recommending a focus on housing uses within our residential zones. So that's what we're working with the county on. What things can we do? What things can we write in? Like the definitions. What is the definition of a farm use or forest use or transmission lines? Can we better describe that use within the residential zones? So that's our kind of our challenge right now in working with the county and making sure we don't start another claim against the county for it. So that's where we are with land uses. There are other things that we've talked about with the county. You note that in Rand's reading of the vision and values statement, there was talking about preparation for climate change and about building construction. We've talked about some construction things to changes in the county, and that has not gone well yet. We're still working on that. So anyways, that's where we're at. Hopefully we've not had a lot of time with Sarah in the last few months because of issues that the county's having with FEMA in particular. And also the Senate Bill 406, which they're trying to implement, which is a housing density bill that can refer to unincorporated communities in Tillamook County. So we're waiting on more feedback, more opportunity to really kind of represent what we believe our needs are in Nescoin and how to protect our residential lots in Nescoin. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Guy. So, any further questions in this regard to the subcommittee's activities?
So I just point out, Rand, that Tom's got something. He says he's got a zone map. If he wanted Guy to display it, he can show it, I guess. But that's just a comment in the chat.
Sure.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I'm open to anything that helps clarify things.
Yeah.
Okay, this is
R1s and
R3 and RRs are the three main residential.
right, all the blue are RRs. And there's Slab Creek on that map. Okay, so that helps understand the zoning variables.
I may want to add that the land is, if you turn off of 101 at Hawk Creek Gallery and go up that road, all the way up that road, the land to the north of that road is recreation management. And it's also, we were looking at this for other reasons, the water district. And there's about 50 acres of recreation management up there. And that one of the uses in recreation management is you can have one house per 5 acres. So it's also a potential. There are no homes there now, but there's a potential for 10 homes in the community, within the community boundary up that road. When we talk about retreat, sometimes I think about that as an area of retreat.
Yes, we have talked many times to Sarah about what if we needed to move the village uphill, and she said, well, you have to have the disaster first. You can't anticipate a disaster and change the zoning to move people up out of the tsunami zone. You have to, like so many other things like highway safety, until someone is, or many people are hurt or killed, you don't usually get a sign put up because you anyway.
One of the things, one of the sections we will have in our plan, and we haven't really kind of thought about how this will be outlined within the plan, but there will be recommendations for the future. And some of our recommendations will be ones where we may recommend changes in our land use ordinances for the Nescoin R1 and R3 and especially R1 and R3. We may recommend changes, even though the county says right now there's just they do not want to take it on. But it's been 20 years since our last, 23 years since our last community plan. And here we are, we're looking back at what people had to say in 1999 and 2000, and the plan was finally approved in 2001. So I think, for me, and I think the committee agrees, that we want to at least kind of record what our recommendations are now. And if that, if approved, and the recommendation is that we focus on housing in our residential zones, that could be there, and we could recommend changes to those R1 and R3 zones. There's some simple ways of dealing with that, even though the county has told us that's not going to happen now. But we may be another 23 years before, and so if we record it now, it's,
on the books.
It's on the books. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's something that the committee would have to recommend, and the community would have to approve those recommendations. And there'll be other recommendations, not just in within land use. There may be recommendations for the federal refuge or other areas, beach and dunes. We don't know, but we haven't addressed those yet. but certainly land use is a possibility for making recommendations that we know the county at this time will not approve.
Nancy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm curious. This is a great map. Thank you, Tom. Why is R1 so small? And is it just the way Neskowin was formed that this little block here is R1 and not R3? Is there a difference between R1 and R3 very much in terms of actual practical?
Yes, in use, what you're allowed to build in R1. When Neskowin was first platted, the lots, most of the residential lots in the village, for instance, today do not meet the minimum standard. There's a lot of 5,000 square foot lots in that R1 zone. And the minimum lot in R1 is 7,500 square feet now. So if Neskowin were just starting today, it would look very different. There'd be a lot less housing in Neskowin. But when it was first platted, there weren't those rules and requirements. So, but I think R3, it's limited to R3 in my memory, and I'm trying to read this map, is part of McMinnville, half of McMinnville, part of on kind of the western side of Breakers. And that allows for more dense housing, like quadruplexes or duplex kinds of things that are not allowed in R1 as an outright use.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Salem
the
DM.
map color choices of the county were not ideal. It would be better if there was a little bit of difference between R1 and R3, but the text here, the narrative, is taken from the county language, just compacted a bit, but mostly it's down here, as I understand. This is the R3. All the light yellow is R1, so it's actually fairly large.
Yeah,
Right.
the R3 is a small
It's
section.
a very small
between
area.
Oh, it's
Salem
down
and
here.
Yam
Excuse me.
Hill.
I messed up. Yeah, the R3 is the tiny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, I can get a little zoomed in here. There's the R3.
Now I'm seeing comments on the office of the parliamentarian.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Why is that? That is the wrong screen. Okay, I'll move it over here. How about that?
I recognize that one.
There you go.
There we go.
Salem and Yam
Perfect.
Hill, Hawk and Breakers.
Okay,
Out
so
to the
apparently
ocean.
I shared the wrong screen. Before I should have shared this screen. Sorry. Which
That's
does have the narrative of what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the only area that's R3, and
Thank you.
most of it's R1.
Yeah, I
Right.
misread. So within R1, there can be little sub areas or something, because like I see up on Nesco and Crust, everything looks like it's R1 pretty much, but some of those lots are buildable and some require extra hoops, right? So there could be differences within the zones.
Within the zone, you can do this. Within a particular lot, you have to have approval from more than one source. That's the hoops.
Okay.
Land use is one hoop, but there are other hoops that you have to go through.
Got it.
Part of
Thank you.
part of land use is geotech studies and other things like that. So if you're on the side of a mountain, you may be an R1, but there's a lot more permits and approvals that you would have to get as part of the land use. But the big issue for land use for us is use itself. What are the uses allowed, both outright and conditionally? And there are some uses that, for me personally, I would like to see move from outright use to conditional use. That's just a personal thing right now as I look at it, because conditional use gives more review to a particular use, without getting into too much detail. But we'll see where it goes. But I think right now, all the feedback we're getting from the county is don't take on any changes to the land use, to the uses themselves. We'll see.
Thank you.
Barry asked about the differences between R1 and R3.
Yeah.
And I was just writing to him to say R3 includes some commercial uses like sales, and in the past there were little motels located in the area of R3 that are no longer, that they're now private residences, but that's my, oh, there, Tom's got it up there on the
Yeah,
screen.
it's more high density R3, more high density
Yeah,
allowed.
commercial is the NISC C.
Right. There are some commercial uses allowed in the residential zones,
Right,
which include farm and forest as commercial
that's right.
uses. In fact, the definition of farm use in the county says it has to be used for commercially. The farm use has to be uses that are going to provide a profit. So that's the number one commercial use in the residential zones is farm use.
There you go, including horses and such.
Right.
The other thing that we become aware of is there's a shooting range in Nescowan in an R1 area because they have more than 5 acres, so they can have a shooting range a little north of the golf course on the west side. Okay.
So can I ask just I know of the committee and Rand, but I know I've attended a couple meetings recently. I know you guys, this group meets twice a month, at least generally. And I know that you're working on just what you've said, trying to look at the ordinances and what to do about that. Having some ideas. So it's October. Do you think, I think we meet as a general membership meeting again in December. Would the hope be, it's sort of a loaded question, but would the hope be that you'll have some answers regarding ordinance questions by that time?
The magic question.
I know, just big picture. I'm just thinking, and I know I've attended the meetings and the last one where we talked about the ordinances and sort of the hiccup with the county on getting some clear direction on some things. Is that the hope? Maybe that's a better question. Is that the hope that in December you'll have more? Maybe.
Yeah, because we still haven't heard about the SB 406 as far as how that's going to apply here or what we need to do to address that. Sarah had a meeting about it, but that's a question mark. I would say if we can, we will, but I think I also feel we need to have some meetings that are specifically about ordinances that we have more public attendance. Right now, the attendance to our meetings has not been very exciting because we mostly can't do anything. So I would hope that we can have some public meetings with some proposals so we get some feedback from our community on some Zoom meetings, and we haven't scheduled those because we don't have the material. That's why the meeting on the 28th with Sarah is our next best hope to getting clarity so that then we can have a public meeting and say, here are our ideas for recommendations. We want your input. Guy outlined some of the things and basic tactics that we're figuring we may just have to make proposals, and that's what our community recommends, whether they're taken up by the county or not. So I'm not sure that really answered your question. After the 28th, we'll have a better idea, and that might allow for us in November to have community meetings with what we have to put forward.
Okay, I think that's, I know at the last meeting, I think we were talking about this a little bit, and I guess what I would say, I don't know, but I think what was mentioned, just moving forward.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said, Rand, just moving forward as a community with conversations about these things and putting it on paper. And then when the county chooses to weigh in on it, they weigh in on it. And maybe you have to adjust at that point. But I know this group is working hard on this plan. And I guess personally, I wouldn't want you to be stifled in the work that you're trying to do and just move forward with it. I think to some degree, because I hope that on the 28th, it's a really good meeting and, Sarah's there and there's some good work done. But if not, I just feel like the committee's doing great work and just move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have actually drafts that are publicly available.
Okay.
So I think I talked to Gary about it. I think there is a pointer to the folder that has them. And the latest revision number is the one that's currently been discussed by the committee. I have one that I'm working on and sort of in my back pocket to present to the committee. But other than that, everything that we've got is public, including the evolution of the document. It's actually quite lengthy at this time. It just doesn't have the meat in it. Got a lot of bones, not a lot of meat.
So when you do get the sort of the meat in it, to use Tom's expression, then will you hold sort of feedback, meetings like the bylaws? I thought really did a nice job when they had the feedback meetings, and they had a number of meetings and they'd publicize them and folks could come and just, give their 2 cents, right? About what, and hopefully you'll maybe follow that as well, or.
Yeah, that would be our hope. We just want to get
great.
some meat on the bone before we share
Got
it. Lori had a comment.
Oh, I was just going to say that the people that seem to be at this meeting seem to be engaged. So if anyone proactively has something that they think that would be appropriate in an ordinance change, send, even if it's just the kernel of an idea, send it to the committee so we can start working on it as we talk about these things. But don't just wait to hear it. We have to say, feel free to send your ideas.
Right. That's appreciated. Okay, so I think that's it from our committee, unless other committee members, subcommittee members have comments.
Just that, when we first started, we had a timeline that we had hoped to actually have this plan, at least a full draft of the plan done by this fall to present to the CAC. And that's probably not going to happen, or it's certainly not in the form that we had hoped. So there's no question that the county, because of other demands right now, especially is, and the lack of their ability to fully participate in this is affecting our timeline. So I don't think we have to apologize for that. I just, just that people should know that, we do live at the mercy of how much the county can do for us. So.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rand, and the steering committee for sharing all of this information with us today. It's been really helpful.
Great.
Okay.
One thing,
go ahead,
Mark.
Yeah.
I think our report's done, but I did want to, and I've mentioned to you before about the CAC having somebody that would be reaching out to the various groups that have an impact on Neskowin, whether it be the water district, sewer district, fire rescue folks, whatever, and have a time on the agenda to report. And I hope that the executive committee, and I don't know if the bylaws committee was going to take that up as well, because I think one of the important things about our CAC meetings is that we have an opportunity to hear kind of a full community report of all the things that are impacting our lives here. But that said, just wanted to, as I'm a member of the Regional Water District here in Neskowin, and going to what we read in the Vision and Values report, the district is actively pursuing. We have purchased a key property. We're in the middle of negotiating for another key property in the watershed. And we have hired, we've got grants to hire appraisers to appraise other properties in the watershed. We've got grants to hire a forestry group firm to come up with a management plan for the forest, because the lands that we're interested in our Hawk Creek watershed are all forest, lands, and would have to be managed for conservation and protection of our drinking water. So just to let you know that, that the water district is in active pursuit, both of grants and other things. We're attending, working with DEQ and Oregon Health Authority, with OWEB on more grants for both acquisition and management planning, things like that. So it's a very active piece of what's going on in the water district, all for the purpose of protecting our drinking water, which is probably the one resource our community cannot do without.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed. We have talked about just what you said, Guy. Thanks for the report on the watershed. We talked at least at the executive committee and where, how we sort of try and enlist folks who would represent the NCAC at different whether it's the water board or whether it's the electric company or whether it's the emergency services, or all of those things, and where that lies with the NCAC. Is it in the community outreach portion, for example, or where does that sit? And so it is on our agenda. That is on our radar.
I think another thing that we can't overlook either is, as most of us know, the county is in severe budget difficulty. Short this year about 400,000. They're projecting a $3 to $4 million shortage over the next couple of years, each year. If you read in the news the various things that they are considering, both in terms of revenue producing and the services reduction, many of those will impact Neskowin potentially. So that's another area that I think someone from the CAC should be monitoring, because it's the county commissioners who are meeting with a little extended budget committee, and our community may want to have some input into some of these decisions that they're making. So that's another thing that I think is an example of, you may not think of the county and that is something that we should be monitoring, but part of our CAC responsibility is to advise the county on things that may impact our community. Mm-hmm. And there are things that they're considering that definitely would impact us.
Well, you're exactly right, because when I looked at the mission of the NCAC, it is to recommend on different things, and safety, and I don't know, I can't remember, there were 4 items there, but that's a good guideline for what we should do, is in that mission, in that I think it's called the object, Article 2 in the bylaws. So we refer to that as a guideline for what we should do when we need it as an executive committee. And you're right about the recommendation part. Okay, with that, thank you again to the steering committee group. We'll looks like our next to last, other than adjourning, is our bylaws update from Nancy. So Nancy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So our bylaws subcommittee is working diligently. Our committee includes Wyatt Angelo, Michael Beachley, who's here today, is our scribe. Tom Sipe is our editor, and Susan Schoenberg and myself. So Bill Miller dropped out this year. We do have 2 open positions if anyone would like to join us. We're meeting every first and third Friday morning at 9 o'clock to whenever. They've been shorter meetings lately, but until 11. People are welcome. It's open to all of our members. And we're continuing to put all of our information as we're developing it on the website and our meeting folders. I want to thank, well, she's dropped out. Oh no, Candace. I want to thank Candace for doing a beautiful job of putting everything out in the emails as well as in the calendar, and Gary also for putting everything up and into all of our information out for everybody to look at. So at this point, last year we had a big effort to redo the bylaws completely, and they are available in the reference part of the website. And this year we are tackling policies and procedures. This is a new document. It doesn't exist already in the NCAC. But as we were going through the bylaws review, there were a lot of things that needed to be more specific and specified. So that's what we're tackling this year. Guy mentioned having a monitoring aspect, and we already have included his recommendations in our proposed policies and procedures as a monitoring task force that we'll be discussing and bringing to the executive board as well as to the membership at some point. So while we did the bylaws as an overall one proposal, one motion to approve, we're probably going to be bringing the policies and procedures in pieces at the various upcoming meetings, and we will have some feedback sessions as well before that. But they're going to be more detailed. How would we do voting? How would we be deciding who should be proposed? As Mark talked about at the very beginning of the meeting, there have been some questions that have come up about how do we partner with other organizations? How do we handle political or advocacy kinds of things that come to us or that we would like to try to do? So there's a lot to it, and we're working right now partly on format. How do we even present this? Tom has done a great job with some introductory kinds of things, and as what we've been doing over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 months is we've interviewed the officers about what they do, what they'd like to see in the standing rules to describe their positions, as well as we've gone back and reviewed all of our feedback session where we would talk about, hey, this should go in the policies and procedures, but we hadn't necessarily recorded it. And so we're bringing back all that so we don't lose anything, as well as an existing already topic list that we had. So we always welcome member input. If you have anything you would like to have us consider, please email at bylaws@ncac.org. I think that's what we are. Or send something to the general info at NCAC email, and we will definitely be considering everything you send to us. So I think in December, we will probably have some recommendations at our December meeting, particularly referring to the upcoming elections, because in the last bylaws, we changed officer election from the June meeting to the April meeting so that a new set of officers can start planning before they take office in July. So the current officers will still continue operating through June 30th, but there would be some planning opportunity. So we need to provide a little more information on how that happens. So I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, short and sweet. We appreciate Mark and our new secretary, who's sitting there as NCAC host, or Gary, for coming to our meetings on a regular basis as well, and they've provided great input. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, with that, I think if there are no other questions or comments, I'll move to adjourn. We'll just adjourn the meeting. It's 11:36 on a nice Saturday, so I'll just say it should be a great game between the Ducks and the Ohio State Buckeyes today, I hope. So everybody have a good day.
Thank you, Mark.